Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Becca Scoops. Today we're going to be doing an investigation into Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Many people have asked, should Gypsy Rose Blanchard's parole be revoked? Well, that's the question we asked law enforcement personnel who worked on the original case back in 2015. Who are we? My partner is a veteran detective with 20 years experience, and I'm Becca, a former psychiatric and ICU RN. Join us as we take you down the rabbit hole of this case and answer these tough questions. What was the real motive? Did Gypsy Rose lie to the parole board? And has she been rehabilitated? When Gypsy Rose Blanchard was released from prison on December 28, 2023, she was acclaimed as the celebrity of the moment. Netizens on TikTok threw her release parties and hailed Blanchard a survivor. Gypsy Rose wasted no time as she embarked on a glitzy media tour along with her new husband, Ryan Anderson. That's when the tide started to turn. Others took to social media and blasted Blanchard as a master manipulator after the celebrated convict claimed in one interview that she doesn't identify as a schmurderer. We were told Gypsy was an abused little girl who grew up and asked her internet boyfriend, Nicholas Godejohn, to unalive her mother. Gypsy took a plea deal and served 8.5 years in prison. Well, that didn't sit well with law enforcement personnel we contacted, who granted us some insider info about the original investigation and other details never revealed.
Okay, good morning. I want to specify at the beginning of this press conference that this is an ongoing investigation. And I want to start off with saying things are not always as they appear.
To understand a crime, detectives investigate the victim, in this case, Dee Dee Blanchard. We learned Dee Dee had a long track record of being a con woman who had quite a colorful criminal past. In HBO's 2017 documentary, several relatives made claims about Dee Dee's bad track record of misdeeds, which included allegedly writing bad checks, committing credit card fraud, and engaging in petty thefts. They also claimed, quite alarmingly, that Dee Dee may have helped do away with her own mother, Emma Petrie, through slow starvation. Then there was Dee Dee's stepmother, Laura, who also claimed that Dee Dee once tried to do away with her by putting the weed killer Roundup in her food. Laura ultimately survived, but was bedridden for 9 months following the alleged murder attempt. However, Dee Dee's most infamous role would be using her daughter, Gypsy Rose, in a medical con that lasted many, many years. By now, most people have heard that Dee Dee was a con woman who allegedly had a condition called Munchausen by proxy. She was making Gypsy fake illnesses and seek medical procedures she did not need. However, we were pretty shocked to learn that before Munchausen by proxy, also called factitious disorder imposed by another, became the narrative in this case, a few psychologists weren't sure that fit Dee Dee to a T. So we had to ask, where did the Munchausen by proxy diagnosis come from in the first place? Only 48 hours after Gypsy's arrest, before any criminal investigation had happened, the Springfield News Leader published an article that claimed this diagnosis of Munchausen by proxy came from, quote, amateur sleuths on the internet, end quote. The article read, quote, it was posted everywhere by people reading the stories and making judgments about what was happening, end quote. Then there's Dr. Ann Roast, who is the assistant head of psychology at Missouri State University. She said, as you might expect, such a diagnosis isn't so easy. She added, for one, the victim, usually a child, isn't aware of the deception. It's unclear, Roast claimed, how much Gypsy Blanchard knew about her condition, but certainly she knew she could walk. Dr. Rose said there's a similar but different disorder in which people fake medical issues for financial gain. That's called malingering.
You know what you've got there, my malingering Hector?
No, sir.
Or in this case, it would be malingering by proxy. Rose said, I don't have all the details of this case, but certainly it appears they were benefiting financially. You might be wondering, why is this so important? Why do we need to know, or why did law enforcement who are investigating this case need to know if Dee Dee Blanchard was truly a mom who displayed Munchausen by proxy? Well, it goes to motive. If Dee Dee was just a master con woman who docked her shop, reported fake illnesses, and made Gypsy sit in a wheelchair for financial gain, then Gypsy wouldn't necessarily have been fearing for her life. With what we learned about Dee Dee's history, her criminal past of fraud for financial gain, we can see where this diagnosis might not fit according to the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. One of the 4 criteria for Munchausen by proxy states, the deceptive behavior persists even in the absence of external incentives or rewards. Well, that made us pause. In other words, would Dee Dee have engaged in this behavior, faking Gypsy's illnesses, if she had no financial incentives? That aspect of the diagnosis made us question if Dee Dee truly was actually making Gypsy very ill, or was she running a very abusive con that at times had Gypsy getting certain treatments and procedures. Most cases of Munchausen by proxy that have made headlines show a caretaker, usually a mother, making the child very ill, mostly by some form of poison. Lacey Spears was convicted of first-degree murder of her son after it was found she was poisoning him with high amounts of salt. Then there's Candida Flutie, another mother, who was injecting her son with fecal matter and was sentenced to prison. Also, Hope Ybarra poisoned her daughter with stolen pathogens that sent the child into anaphylactic shock. These are just a few famous cases. An extensive evaluation by the Children's Hospital's feeding team, and that is why she had her G-tube, JPEG feeding tube placed at that time. We could not verify that Gypsy had multiple fraudulent surgeries. She had surgeries to her eyes, which she needed according to her diagnosis of amblyopia, that's a lazy eye, that she admitted to having in one documentary. According to the records, she had many ear infections as a child and had ear tubes placed for drainage. However, we must stress that we did find 2 to 4 procedures that were not backed up by a sound medical diagnosis, but not over 30 surgeries, as some reports have claimed. Many are contending, including law enforcement sources close to the investigation that we spoke to, is that this case was so complex and never fully investigated after the district attorney offered Gypsy a plea deal. Law enforcement personnel who wished to remain anonymous believed, and still do, that Gypsy was never telling the entire truth and is still selling the public and parole board untruths, allegedly, and in their humble opinions, of course. Our conclusion regarding Gypsy's medical history is that it's murky at best. Allegedly, many of the procedures were needed, and some of them were not, and constitute medical abuse by Dee Dee. We acknowledge Dee Dee was an abusive and a master con woman who was hell-bent on gaming the system and ultimately gamed entire communities. What she did to Gypsy was wrong, period. But did she need to die in such a heinous way? The question one law enforcement official close to the original investigation asked was, at what point did Gypsy move from victim to potential accomplice with her mother? 2 things can be true at the same time, they pointed out. You can be a victim who then becomes a perpetrator. When we discuss motive for a crime, it's important to ascertain Gypsy's mind. Did she fear for her life? Was there no other way out? According to investigators close to the case, everything came to a head in 2011 after Gypsy meets a 30-something-year-old man named Dan Glidewell at a sci-fi convention. Witnesses reported Gypsy became obsessed with Dan. Glidewell gave sworn testimony in court about his relationship with Gypsy. Glidewell stated under oath that he kept in contact with Gypsy via video chat. He says that Gypsy told him her mother made her stay in a wheelchair and had unnecessary medical treatment. Glidewell testified that their relationship developed from friendship to a sexual relationship. They would send explicit videos to each other. He testified about how they role-played occasionally. He referred to Gypsy as being shy and timid. However, Dan also testified that he developed a taste of power exchange role-playing from Gypsy. That's right. This is a very important point. Dan testified that back in 2011, the year he met Gypsy, he developed a taste of power exchange role-playing from her. He says she would send nude photos, dress up in costumes, and use various fictitious names. Glidewell says he was injured and that Gypsy visited him while he was in the hospital, not in her wheelchair. She told him she wanted to go to Arkansas to restart her life. As those in law enforcement pointed out, this sworn testimony contradicts Gypsy's narrative in many ways. She claimed it was Nick who led her into the BDSM world of role-playing, when clearly Dan claimed under oath it was Gypsy who introduced him to this role-playing power exchange. Could Dan be lying? Sure, he's a convicted felon. However, he has zero motive to lie about this. And in our opinion, and those we spoke to, Gypsy had a motive to paint Nick as the aggressor, where the role-playing turned into a very real-life crime. This was integral to her narrative, it was integral to her plea deal, and it was integral for her to get early parole. In fact, when Gypsy's lawyer set up an appointment with a psychologist ahead of her parole hearing, she claimed something very different than Dan's sworn testimony under oath. Take a look at this. The parole board often looks at these psychological reports to determine if a convict is ready for early release. According to the Missouri Law Review, while the process for conducting psychological evaluations varies state by state, it commonly includes an interview with the inmate by a trained psychologist. This psychologist includes in their report an opinion on a matter relevant to the parole decision. According to the report, the biggest factors for early release include the convict must be completely truthful about their crime. They must take full responsibility, and they must be sincerely remorseful. Dan Glidewell was ironically mentioned by both Gypsy and Nick while awaiting their police interviews right after being arrested. Many in law enforcement close to the case are alleging Dan remained one of Gypsy's biggest obsessions. In fact, Gypsy was caught on the interrogation video claiming she only knows 3 phone numbers by heart, and Dan was one of them. Nick also mentions Dan, saying, quote, "I'll apologize to everyone, but not Dan," end quote. Here are those videos.
Did it if it wasn't for us. She knew it was the only way to be together. I'd apologize to everyone. Everyone except for Dan. Dan's the only one I would not apologize to. Apparently she decided to just go with it. Like, screw it. Me and I actually held together until... I learned that she didn't lie.
The problem is I can't remember her number. God, as soon as I only know like 3 numbers offhand.
Yes, I don't know as many as I should. That's for sure. We'll Most of the numbers I know offhand are work numbers.
Hmm.
Other than that, my mom,
Hmm.
that's pretty much it.
The only numbers that I know offhand, my mom usually keeps all the numbers in her cell phone or on a piece of paper at home. And the only ones that I know are my mom's number, Nick's number that just got arrested, and my friend Dan's number, but we're not on good speaking terms. So.
As Gypsy awaited her police interview or interrogation, she chatted up a young detective. Our sources revealed senior detectives assigned this, quote, good-looking cop to stand in the doorway, hoping Gypsy would open up and reveal herself. Gypsy wasted no time boasting and engaging the young officer, first making it clear she's a good girl, telling him she went to the hospital very embarrassed to be in handcuffs, but she had to go because she had a seizure disorder and needed meds. Later, before her interrogation begins, she boasts about her great times at theme parks, her VIP status, and exclusive packages. Oh, and all the food and sugar she consumed while on these wonderful trips with her mother. She sees herself as a righteous character who does the right thing, knowing full well that she had orchestrated her mother's demise. It's quite shocking how she can say those words out loud and mean it. Gypsy's overall demeanor here says it all and told detectives all they needed to know about how just unaffected she was about planning Dee Dee's demise. Meanwhile, at the same time, this is so sad, a few doors down, as Nick awaits his interrogation, he was having a nervous breakdown, worrying about his true love, the woman he just threw his life away for. Take a look at these clips.
I'll let her,
That means a lot.
I'll let her know that you want to make sure she's okay, right?
Yeah, and
And that
yeah,
she's,
let her know
that
that,
she's
and also let her know that,
thinking about you.
yeah, that's what I want to know, is if she's thinking about me, because I've been worried about it. I have no reason to be, because I know she doesn't take care of herself,
Okay.
but
She's not in any danger or any threat or any harm.
Exactly.
She's okay.
it's that I just, I'm older.
I know. And after these guys talk to you and that, maybe you'll get, maybe you'll get to hold her again, okay?
Okay, I
Alright.
understand. And
Okay.
I do thank you, like I said, I mean,
Need some Kleenex?
well, you
I'll get
gave
you.
every center.
Alright, I'll get you.
I can't do it. I don't want to miss her anymore. I don't want to miss her anymore. I want to build older.
We also learned that Gypsy's penchant for violence against her mother manifested in 2011 after Dee Dee thwarted Gypsy's plans to be with Dan, her 30-something-year-old paramour. Gypsy admitted to picking up a GUN and pulling the trigger 10 times. Granted, it was a BBGUN, but Gypsy said she thought it was real. Dee Dee was treated at a hospital, and the pair made up a story about being robbed at a Walmart parking lot. In our opinion, this pivotal relationship with Dan appears to be the motivating factor that leads Gypsy to start planning her mother's demise. Remember, this is a full year before she meets Nicholas Godejohn. Even Nick, who has an IQ of 82 and lives with autism, questioned Gypsy's relenting obsession with getting rid of her mom in a series of Facebook messages.
I have to ask you something. How crazy do you think Gypsy is? You won't hurt my feelings or anything. I really want to know though, since I just obviously can tell she is. I just can't seem to put in words how crazy I think she is.
It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's interesting that he had
thinks
those
she's
thoughts of
crazy.
her.
Yeah.
And the friend replies, well, I don't know how to put it into words either, but I'll be honest, I would not ever unalive my mum or anyone else unless they try to unalive me first. So the person's giving him advice saying, This isn't normal.
No.
It's a shame that Nick didn't take that advice. Things could have changed. He could have had a different story, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
But he went on the path he went on anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, let's go to the next text message, Mars. So Nicholas responds and he says,
Yeah, I know. I suppose situations change people though, to where others are willing to do things that other people aren't. And obviously my mom, even though she has been hard on me, overall, she has been a very good mother to me. So I couldn't ever do it to her. And the only reason I can understand it with her mom is because how unreasonably poor her mom treats her. But since it is a last resort thing, who knows? Maybe it won't ever have to happen.
It's starting to look like Gypsy's motivation to do away with her mother sprang out of this relationship with Dan. Dan's roommate wrote she, Gypsy, had fixated on Dan rather hard, and she considered him her boyfriend, although that was not the case. She thought he was her knight in shining armor. We had to ask, where is Gypsy's anger coming from? When her mom allegedly put a voodoo curse on her seems to have pushed Gypsy over the edge. This alleged curse had to do with Gypsy's relationship with Dan, Dee Dee proclaiming that Gypsy would never find happiness with him or with any man. This, along with Gypsy shooting her mom 10 times over Dan, shows the true amount of anger she was dealing with and probably never got over. Dan's roommate recalled Gypsy's anger, writing, quote, Gypsy and Dee Dee got into a rather heated argument of the kind one might expect between a mother and a teenager who feels that she, Dee Dee, was too controlling. Gypsy wasn't afraid to show her anger at all, end quote. Another neighbor said, when he was alone with the mom and daughter, that, quote, Gypsy showed a darker and secretive side, yelled at her mom at one point. It was totally an uncomfortable situation, so I pulled away. Later, Gypsy told me she would do anything to get away from her mom, that she was being smothered and just wanted to live a normal life. She was so sweet, kind of scary, when mad though, end quote. Although we aren't doctors or psychologists, we have met our fair share of psychopaths during our careers, those who display signs and symptoms associated with antisocial personality disorder.
You're obviously going to keep telling me lies, so I'm going to talk to you about it. Okay?
I'm not sure.
All right. Now you're going to be booked in for, later on down the line, you're going to be booked in for probably murder, okay? As long as, and with him as well, okay? All right?
I didn't murder my mom, sir.
Listen to me. Listen to me. You did, because you're behind it. You pulled all the strings on it, and you're behind it. I'm not, listen, Gypsy, I'm not going to sit and argue with you about it, okay?
All I wanted was him to come and get me.
No, that's not all you wanted. There's a lot more to this whole story that you're leaving out. I'm not going to play the sympathetic game. I'm not like that, okay? I can see right through it, okay?
Please, I'm not able to be in jail. I have a lot of medical needs.
I understand that, and they'll get taken care of, okay? So, sit tight.
I want a lawyer. Please, sir. Sir. I want a lawyer. Please, I need a lawyer.
Okay, have a seat.
Maybe this crime had nothing to do with Dee Dee's alleged abuse of Gypsy, as Gypsy's defense lawyers masterfully sold everyone on, and more to do with Gypsy's anger at her mother for thwarting her romantic relationships. If Gypsy truly didn't fear for her life and started acting out in violence toward her mom at age 19 when she met Dan, we decided to take a look at other similar cases where the anger and resentment at the parent over a boyfriend ended in tragedy. A few recent cases in the media are Aaron Caffey, Sierra Halseth, and Caitlin Coons. young women who murdered parents over their romantic relationships. Sadly, this type of matricide and patricide can be found, young women doing away with parents over romantic relationships. We've seen Gypsy being able to leave home on several occasions to see Dan. We are not convinced she truly believed she had no way out. If Gypsy went to trial and a full investigation would have been done, it's our opinion there's a very strong possibility she could have been sentenced to at least 30 years in prison. Gypsy's sole role model was Dee Blanchard. Gypsy displays signs of being a master manipulator with no real remorse, and when she's called out on it, she tries to parrot the right words.
And I said some things that I feel confused a lot of people. One particular thing I said was on a podcast, and I said I didn't identify as the M-word, which we all know what the M-word is. And what I meant by that was not that I'm not branded the M-word. I know that I am, but it's not like I'm going to go to a job interview and be like, "Hi, my name is Gypsy Blanchard. I'm an M-word." That's all I meant by it. I meant that. And, I don't want to have to remind people every single time that I'm not the one that committed the act of the kill. So, I'm a part of it.
Right.
But in the state of Missouri, there's no such thing as accessory to murder. So technically,
they couldn't charge you.
They couldn't charge me with accessory because that charge doesn't exist. Okay. So, had I been in another state, I would have been charged with accessory to commit murder. I don't associate myself as a murderer. If you think about it, yes, I had a part to play in it. I asked Nick for help, but he's the one that did the actual kill, not me. So when they say I'm a murderer, I don't identify as that.
Everything Gypsy does here on out must be viewed as inauthentic and calculating. Can she change? Well, only with years and years of real honest therapy. But we know from mental health professionals, the prognosis is not great for anyone displaying this degree of no remorse and manipulative behaviors. Even after years in prison, when Gypsy can't get her way, she resorts to alleged narcissistic behavior. Immediately out of prison, she planned on meeting Taylor Swift, or rather, hoping to manipulate events to run into her at a Kansas City Chiefs game. When she was told no by the parole office that she needed to leave Missouri and go to Louisiana, she believed she was being somehow singled out.
I'm like, why does my instructions have to be different than anyone else's? Because to me, I'm just another average bear.
Being a real average bear means you do what your parole officer says. No special treatment, no manipulative plans to try to run into Taylor Swift. But Gypsy's used to having special treatment, it seems. And when she doesn't get her way, we see the real Gypsy Rose. Gypsy Rose is addicted to drama and, in our humble opinion, has shown no real remorse, especially when it comes to her co-defendant Nicholas Godejohn, who is rotting away in prison for the rest of his life after he was taken for quite a ride by Gypsy Rose Blanchard. After Nick runs out all of his appeals, the only way he may ever see the light of day is through new evidence. Sadly, cases like this one just don't go before the Supreme Court. We started this investigation right after Gypsy was released from prison. And in those 3 months, we've seen Gypsy already repeating the past.
Oh, not you again.
It was obvious to many that Gypsy traded her obsession with Dan Glidewell to her fixation on a man named Ken Erker, who she developed a relationship while in prison. Much like Dan, Ken rebuffed Gypsy and called off their relationship. She immediately took up with Ryan Anderson on the rebound, who was her new Nick Godejohn. Their marriage was over after 3 months. It was clear Anderson was much more besotted with her than she was ever with him. Ryan was her new means to an end as she left prison. Anderson related on the prison confessions doc that Gypsy enjoyed making him jealous. It's all just a big game to her. And sadly, she cares for neither of them, really. Everything is all about Gypsy Rose. The way Gypsy uses these men point to signs and symptoms of severe personality disorders. One, we've already mentioned, antisocial. The other is narcissistic personality disorder, two of the most dangerous which are seen in many lifelong criminals. Well, that does it for us. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, please like and comment and consider sharing the video to know what you think about Gypsy Rose, and we promise we'll read all the comments. And if you'd like more content like this one, please consider subscribing. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks again.